we'll be at education 10.0 by 2030.
Yeah,
It's moving so fast.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, give me 1 more minute to check. Camera पण का वेळ घेतोय? Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
So good evening, Dr. Tamasha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we can start. VC madam is still busy in some meeting, but she is joining. Meanwhile, we will not make participants and most importantly, Professor Pant wait. So she has requested us to start, and she will be joining when the session is on.
Okay.
Because
Okay, ma'am. I think you'll have to start my video, ma'am.
you can start. All participants are starting their videos on their own.
I got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do I start then, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Professor Kamath is here. I think Madam has joined. Professor Kamath.
Yes, I'm here.
Madam, are you there? I saw
Yeah,
you.
I'm there.
Okay.
Namaskar, Panta sir. Professor Pant, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, ma'am.
So good to see you after a long time.
Yes.
Okay. So we start.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the valedictory session of the two-day national conference titled NEP-2020 Simplified, Pathways to EdTech Implementation, organized by the Department of Educational Technology, SNDT Women's University, in collaboration with Central Institute of Educational Technology. I now request Dr. Amarendra Behera to welcome all the dignitaries and participants.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very good afternoon. Namaskar to all of you. Honorable Professor Pant ji, former Vice-Chancellor, Indira Gandhi National Open University, popularly known as IGNOU, New Delhi. And also Honorable Professor Vasudha Kamarji, former Vice-Chancellor, SNDT Women University, Mumbai, and also former Joint Director, Central Institute of Educational Technology, NCERT, New Delhi. Also esteemed Professor Ujwala Chakradeo ji, Honorable Vice-Chancellor of the SNDT Women University, Mumbai. Distinguished resource persons, I could see Professor Dr. Bakshi, also Biplab Bakshi ji, and all others. And distinguished participants, and esteemed Dr. Jayashree Shindeji, faculty members from SNDT Women University, faculty from CIET and CERT, and all the participants of the 2 days national conference on NEP 2020 Simplified, especially pathways to EdTech implementation. It is a privilege to welcome the dignitaries like Professor Pant to the valedictory session of this 2 days national conference, which is culminating today, and all other distinguished dignitaries, which is being organized by SNDT Women University, Mumbai, in collaboration with Central Institute of Educational Technology, a constituent of NCERT. So once again, I welcome one and all for this valedictory session, and I hope the knowledge which we gained, skills which we acquired during these 2 days, and also skills which will be acquiring during the valedictory session will help us to realize the vision of National Education Policy 2020 through these 2 days deliberation. And once again, welcome to the valedictory session. Over to Madam Kamash. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. You're indeed right that the 2-day conference has showcased several wonderful illuminating sessions, resulting in some very interesting deliberations. I now request Dr. Madhavi Dharankar to read the report of the conference.
Thank you very much, Tamasha ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you very much. Respected chief guest of today's valedictory section, Professor Pant, our Honorable ex-Vice-Chancellor, Madam Professor Vasudha Kamar, and our very dear mentor of our department, and our very dear Vice-Chancellor, Ma'am, Professor Ujwala Chakradeo, and all the various dignitaries. I take a great pleasure to present the report of a very action-packed conference that we have had. So this conference was organized by Department of Educational Technology in collaboration with CIET and CERT, New Delhi, on occasion of Golden Jubilee Year celebrations inauguration. Conference was titled as NEP 2020 Simplified, Pathways to EdTech Implementation. The conference began with the pre-conference panel workshops from 2 to 3:30 on 25th June, and we had 6 panel workshops yesterday. 360 degrees developing learning resource. The resource persons were Dr. Ramesh Sharma and Dr. Yashpal Sharma. Assistive technology, the second workshop was conducted by Mr. Sushil Pandit, Mr. Keshavan Nadar, and Ms. Poonam Devkar. The third workshop was bringing interactivity in MOOCs, was conducted by Dr. Angel Ratnabai and Shri Biplab Bakshi. Then the fourth workshop was developing interactive OER, which was conducted by Ms. Sushumna Rao, Devyani Biju, and Nikhil Nagarkar. Fifth workshop was mainstreaming interacting OERs in teaching learning, was conducted by Professor Malika Kaushik And the 6th workshop was conducted by Dr. Jayashree Shinde, which was planning for blended learning. Total in 6 workshops, 197 participants actually participated in the workshops. After the workshops from 3:45 to 5:30, we had the inaugural session, which was through Zoom. The audience was welcome, and the information about the 50 years journey was given through the visual by Dr. Jayashree Shinde, head of the Department of Education and Technology. After which, Professor Amrendra Behra, he gave information about CIT and CERT. The inaugural session was inaugurated by the chief guest, respected Padma Vibhushan, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan sir, who is Chairperson, the National Education Policy Draft Committee, Government of India. After he guided regarding the various aspects and gave us a broader vision. Yes.
I just joined Professor Behra in welcoming our Vice-Chancellor, Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor Chakradeo. She has joined. Just informing. You can continue.
Yes. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Sir gave us a broader vision of the NEP-2020, especially in the context of education and technology. After that, the inauguration of the logo designed by Mr. Dhananjay Mahakal for the Golden Jubilee year was at the hands of our respected Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ujwala Chakradeo. After this, she gave the chairperson's speech in which she again guided the audience regarding her perceptions about the NEP 2020 in the context of education and technology. After the inaugural session from 6 to 7, we had the keynote address by Professor Vasudha Kamath, who is the chairperson of governing board of CEE under University Center of UGC. She was a member of National Education Policy NEP 2020 Draft Committee. Madam spoke about implementation of NEP and responsibilities of higher education institutions. It was a very in-depth discussion about what would be our roles and responsibilities, and the content actually helped us in getting how exactly we should move ahead at the level of higher education in this. This entire inaugural session and the keynote address was attended by 477 attendees. Today, Sunday, June 26th, was the second day of the conference, which started at 10:15 with the keynote address by Professor Sandeep Sanchetti, who is the provost at Marwadi University. Sir spoke about ABC of ABC, that is the Academic Bank of Credits. So actually, he gave so much in-depth information about ABC that ultimately the audience agreed that it was not ABC of ABC, but it was 820 of ABC. That in-depth it was. Then we had the third keynote speech from 11:45 to 12:45 by Shri Viplav Bakshi, who is the author of What's If EDU on enabling disruption. And he really indeed disrupted our maybe notions and even the meaning associated with the word disruption, which is has actually the negative connotation, but the way he put it, I think it changed everybody's mind. The number of attendees for this entire morning session were 352. Post lunch, we had again the parallel workshops from 2 to 3:30, 6 parallel workshops today again. The first one was Cooperative Learning Strategies in Online Environment, was conducted by Dr. Usha Borkar. Dr. Chitra Wadke and Mr. Viplav Bakshi conducted the workshop on data analytics in teaching learning. E-assessment workshop was conducted by Dr. Biju and Dr. Jayashree Shinde. Dr. Indu Kumar conducted the workshop on game-based learning and gamification. The workshop on ICT tools for collaborative learning was conducted by Dr. Madhvi Dharankar and Devyani Biju, and Professor Vikas Shinde conducted the workshop on problem-based learning curriculum development approach. The total number of participants in today's afternoon workshops was 150. All the keynote speeches were streamed live through YouTube. And now we are in the valedictory session. So that was the report till what happened until now. Thank you very much. Over to you, Tamacha ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Dharankar. The number of attendees testifies to the success of the conference. While we would ideally like feedback from both the participants and the resource persons about the knowledge sessions and the workshops, we have restrictions of time. But can I request some of the participants to kindly unmute and tell us about your experiences during the conference? You're invited to unmute and please relate your conferences. You can take a minute or two.
So anybody who would like to unmute and start talking about, there is one feedback typed in the chat. So we invite some of you to speak. You can raise hand or you can just unmute and start talking.
Hello, ma'am. Can I speak?
Yes, please. Would you start your camera if possible, just to see, or otherwise you can start speaking. You can just tell your name and start speaking. Yeah, please start speaking, unmute and start speaking. Dr. Thompson.
Sir is muted, I think.
Dr. Mandar, are you speaking?
Yes.
You were muted.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, congratulations to the Department of.
You're again muted.
Somebody muted me.
Oh.
Okay. So, congratulations to the Department of Education and Technology for completing 50 successful years in this domain. Congratulations to Dr. Shinde and the entire team of SNDT University. I personally enjoyed all the sessions, including one of the workshops which was conducted. The second workshop I unfortunately couldn't attend due to some personal reasons, but overall, I would like to congratulate the entire team for the meticulous planning which they have done, specifically designing the parallel workshops. The theme of the workshops were excellent, and which is very much required for the 21st century teachers. And I'm sure Dr. Jayashree and her team would definitely in the future also do such kind of training workshops and not just lectures, which Dr. Vasudha Kamath was yesterday saying, because that is what is very easy to do, to give a lecture. But to handhold the teachers and make them aware and make them train them in this area is most important, which you people are doing. So from my side, congratulations once again, and thank you for giving me opportunity to share my feedback. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else?
Like to talk?
Good evening. Can I?
Yes.
My name is Sandhya Sri Kasturi. I was really blessed to be part of this program. Every session I was listening to is really much more informative for us. Really enjoyed each and every session. Now, what exactly it is in? We had an information which is leading us to transformation. In that way, that the process we are in really, no words are there to express my gratitude to all the members, all the committee members and all the members involved in that. And this really faculty development program enriched, empowered me being a teacher. Thank you so much from my bottom of the heart. I'm feeling so excited also to be, and in future also, I would like to be part of such and my co-teachers also. I would encourage all the teachers to be part of such that is truly so excited. I can't even express the things which I'm feeling now. I wish to explain in my schools and the co-teachers tomorrow after going to my schools and other things. Thank you so much, each and every person involved in that. Thank you so much.
I would like to express my comments on this. I'm Dr. Madhumita Bandopadhyay. I'm a part of SNDT. I'm from an affiliated college, Srimati P.N. Doshi Women's College. And I have attended many, workshops, conferences, discussions on new education policy. In fact, I'm a part of the Board of Studies. So we had a long discussion in the university about the new education policy with Honorable Vice-Chancellor also. I found this whole conference to be very, very useful. And it gives us a complete, a very, enlightening outlook about this new education policy. And it has opened it has cleared a lot of doubts regarding the new education policy. I really thank you for organizing this conference with different kind of topics, which goes so much in depth into this concept. So it was a very, very enjoyable conference. Although we spent almost the entire 2 days with you, the time just flew and we enjoyed every moment of it. And the workshops were also very, very useful. Thank you so much. Thank you, the Education Technology Department, Professor Jayashree Shinde. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madhumita ma'am. Ma'am, there are many comments in the chat box also. Should we take it ahead?
So we can read that on our own. Participants are reading that. I think we can proceed because we want to give time to Professor Pant's session. I do not want to take his time.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for your very valuable feedback. And I'm sure this will really encourage team Jayashree ma'am and her entire team to take up more workshops and deliberations in the future. She knows how much we need all this. Thank you again. I'm honored and gratified to introduce today a globally renowned academic, the digital professor, Professor M.M. Pant. A PhD in computational physics from IIT Roorkee, former Pro-Vice-Chancellor of IGNOU and faculty in IIT Kanpur, MLNR Engineering College, Allahabad, Sir also has over 50 years of postdoctoral teaching and research experience. A visiting scientist at European research centers in Italy, England, Germany, Sweden, and visiting faculty, University of Western Ontario, he has taught in leading institutions in face-to-face, distance, and online modes. Professor Pant has been associated with many educational organizations as member of committees or working groups such as AICTE, AIMA, CBSC, UGC, NIOS, to name a few. There are many universities also. Professor Pant has the unique distinction of being acknowledged by Richard P. Feynman, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, as his Penn student, and also had his PhD thesis approved by Nobel laureate N.F. Mote. He completed his PhD under the guidance of Professor S.K. Joshi, a Director General of CSIR India. He was a pre-PhD fellow at the ICTP and has been mentored and influenced by many great scientists and thought leaders. Probably this is why Sir Pant is doing this for the future even now. If you read I was reading his blogs since 2 days and he is mentoring so beautifully. With the belief that world-class education is truly in one's hands today and that we can have an ocean of opportunities for anybody with the grit, tenacity, and perseverance to be a self-reliant learner. This forward-thinking educator has established Learning 3-2-1 that uses blogging, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, and is accessible on mobile phones. while constantly promoting the ideation, development, and delivery of educational products, processes, and services. Professor Pant's current mission is to develop the new educational paradigm that will help achieve Goal 4 of the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals by fostering self-learning and the deployment of artificial intelligence and allied technologies, which he calls the fifth education revolution. Sir, I request you to deliver your much awaited valedictory address on the topic Education 5.0. Questions will be addressed by Professor Pant at the end of the session, and the participants are requested to write them in the chat box. Thank you very much.
So thank you for this. So thank you for these kind words of introduction. And I must begin by complimenting and congratulating the organizing team for an event of this kind. The description that was given of the event is so overwhelming. So many workshops, so many keynotes, so many sort of, expert talks, that I think by now the audience must have more than the required kind of, stuff of content. So instead of giving one more lecture, and already somebody said that we should not have any more lectures, I will try to share with you a number of stories. Now it is already Sunday afternoon. It is not time for a lecture mode of whatever. It is more of a format for storytelling. So I will tell you a number of short stories. And what will happen is that, as they often say, a word to the wise is enough. With this story of a couple of minutes each, you will be able to develop your own thing and deliver your own ideas, expand on them, and so on and so forth. And of course, as has been organized, if there are certain questions which you want to raise or comments you want to make, I am quite happy to elaborate on them. So let me begin with my first story. The first story relates to Albert Einstein. And for those of you who have some awareness of the work he did and when he did, it is about the year 1905. So Albert Einstein is a professor of physics at the Institute of Advanced Study, Princeton. And like nowadays, at the summertime, it is for examination time, and therefore he's required to make a question paper for the students whom he's teaching physics. Now remember, this is the year 1905 or so. There are no computers, no laser printers, nothing of that kind. So Professor Einstein probably writes the question paper by hand and gives it on to his teaching assistant to make copies and distribute it to the students and then collect it, etc., etc. As you know, in many universities, all professors have teaching assistants whose job is to do these kind of academic activities. These teaching assistants themselves are pretty good in that field. And you may be knowing many people who, when they went abroad, did some teaching assistantship or research assistantship or something to partly meet the cost of the study. So this teaching assistant looked at the question paper and he was surprised. This was exactly the same question paper which Professor Einstein has given to the same students earlier, last year. And he went to Professor and he was wondering whether Einstein is going senile or forgetful or whatever, and went to it, but Professor, these are exactly the same questions you gave to the same students last year. How can you do that? And Einstein looked at the question paper and said, you are right. These are exactly the same questions, but the answers have changed. And this is very interesting. When Einstein said this, the answer that changed because he had created, during that year, 1905, he had published 4 new papers completely changing the course of physics. One was on Brownian movement, one was on special theory of relativity, one was on photoelectric effect, one was on equation equal to mc square mass energy equivalence, and so on. And therefore, the physics had been completely changed. But today you can appreciate this question, this anecdote, not in terms of Einstein and theories of physics, but in terms of what happened to education during the last 2 years. We had the same situation. The COVID pandemic resulted in a very straightforward, simple thing, that the question was the same. What do we teach? How do we teach? Where do we teach? How do we assess? Is that what we teach relevant for the future? And so on and so forth. but the answers have changed. And one of the change to answers was the Zoom kind of meeting, which is now happening for the last couple of years. So this is what I am trying to refer to and develop as this idea of the fifth education revolution and education 5.0. Now, it is very interesting. So I will, as I said, tell you a number of small such stories, and you can build on that. And of course, we're happy to do. I, of course, put up a lot of things on social media. So I make posts on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on my blog at mmpan.com. Links to the blog is on Twitter. So you will find me all over social media. You will also find YouTube videos about me and so on. You will not find me on TikTok. So that is one thing which you must remember, that but all other mainstream media, I am there. On a completely different note, there is a maxim in the field of law, especially criminal law. In criminal law, there is a maxim which says, in Latin, it says, ignorantia juris non excusat, which in simple English means ignorance of the law is no excuse. So if a certain law has been passed, you can't say, I didn't know about it. Like you remember a few years ago, there was demonetization. Now you cannot say, I was not aware of demonetization. You are supposed to know. This is a very important thing. Actually, in life, it is even worse. It is not only ignorance of law. Ignorance itself is no excuse. If new things are happening, if the world is changing, things are the thing, it is your duty to keep yourself informed. We are not doing a favor by going to a college or a university or getting a degree or something. It is an imperative for you. And now it has become an economic imperative. And I again won't go into the details, but many of you would have known that Eric Hanushek is a professor of Stanford University. He collaborated with somebody on a book called The Knowledge Capital of Nations. As you can see, the title is similar to the Adam Smith's World of Wealth of Nations. And what he's saying is, it is the knowledge of people which is the new creator of wealth or the catalyst of wealth. And he is, with data, and Stanford University professor, very meticulous. He has proved that individuals, communities, countries which have a higher quality of knowledge have higher economic value and so on. I'm also reminded of something else. And this is again going back to almost 55 years when I started my research career. One of the books that I studied as a beginning PhD student, and as you know, I did my PhD in computational physics. I'd like to read this out because I like this piece of literature. This is the preface to a book by Professor John Zyman on principles of the theory of solid-state physics, principles of the theory of solids. Now, it says there in the preface, the first few opening words are very important. He says, the frontiers of knowledge, to coin a phrase, are always on the move. Today, this is happening at an unprecedented pace. And the frontier of knowledge, whether it is in physics or chemistry or biology or life sciences or cellular, this thing, they are constantly on the move. And then he says, today's discovery will tomorrow be part of the mental furniture of every research worker. And then he says, by the end of next week, it will be in every course of graduate lectures. And within a month, there will be a clamor to have it in the undergraduate curriculum. And he says, next year, I do believe, and this was written more than 50 years ago, next year, I do believe it will be seen to be so commonplace that it may be assumed that to be known to every schoolboy. This is the power of EdTech. This is what educational technology has done. This is what the internet and its related things like Wikipedia, YouTube, and Google, and all these things are doing, that things which were frontiers of knowledge not too long ago are now accessible to every schoolboy who, or schoolgirl who cares to take an interest. And why I'm saying this is that this is a fundamental aspect of the new change in education. Education earlier was accessible only to a few. Even today, you have IITs have a few thousand seats where there are millions of people wanting to learn that, and so on for any field. So education more is about denying educational opportunities than providing educational opportunities. Whereas what we are talking about in the fifth education revolution is that everybody who wants to learn something and is willing to make the effort for learning and even pay a small sum that may be required for that should be capable of learning. Today, it isn't. Now, there was a time when the total amount of knowledge available to humans was finite and largely in religious books. I don't mean to offend anybody, but just by way of illustration, all of Christianity was in the Bible. And actually, Harvard University's initial graduates meant that if you knew Old Testament and New Testament and knew them in English and Hebrew, you would get a graduate degree. There's another holy book for another set of religion. If you know that, you're considered completely knowledgeable about that. We had a little more complex database. So we had the 4 Vedas, the 18 Puranas, the so many things and so on. But again, it was a finite amount of knowledge. You can today calculate in gigabytes what is the total amount of knowledge. So actually the Republic Day tableau this year had this caption from the Vedas to the metaverse. And when you look at all the amount of Vedic knowledge, you realize that it will come into a certain amount of bytes of information. And whereas if you want to do something on the metaverse, you're talking of much more gigabytes flowing through over small time. Now let me come to this origin of why I'm talking about the fifth education revolution. Now, in 2016, Klaus Schwab, who is the founder of the World Economic Forum, he coined the phrase fourth industrial revolution for the present day industrialization. And to cut a long story short, he said for a long time, we were in a pre-industrial society. Industrialization happened first with steam, then with electricity, then with electronics. And he said the fourth industrial revolution was propelled by artificial intelligence and machine learning and some of the allied technologies. And some of those allied technologies were blockchain, robotics, AR, VR, MR, Internet of Things, 3D printing, and so on and so forth. Now, what Anthony Seldon has done, and I would recommend all people in education to read this book very, very carefully. It's a very nicely written book. Anthony Seldon was till recently Vice-Chancellor of Buckingham University in UK. He was also the head of a school in UK, a very well-known school, other than Eton Wellington is a very well-known school. And this book is an exhortation to all educators to become actively involved in the use of technology in education, especially he means, of course, AI-related technologies. And he is exhorting them, don't be passive observers. See, today the edtech industry talks about themselves as the leaders and expects educators and teachers to be passive receivers. And this is what Anthony Seldon says, don't do. You lead the way for the use of technology in education. Don't become, see, even today I was aghast, CBSE goes to some private company, says, you teach us AI. And what are you all educators about? And why this is very important is that people are forgetting that education, technology in education was pushed by educators long before the computer revolution happened. Now, this is all people Department of Education. And therefore, you know that Skinner talked of program learning long before people like us became computer programmers. Program learning was talked about. Not only that, he created something called the teaching machine. You can Google for it and so on and so forth. Teaching machine by Skinner for use in the classroom was long before computers came into the classroom. Not only that, even in the age of mainframe computing, CDC had a software called Plato, Program Learning and Automatic Tutoring. This ran on mainframe computers of CDC 3600 and so on. I in 67, 68 have actually experienced that. Plato as a program which ran on mainframe was being sold till 2004, 2006, long before internet came, long before all these things came and so on and so forth. So it is very important to understand that education is the important part. And what Anthony Seldon says, there have been only 3 education revolutions so far. He talked about them, and the third was the media, printed media revolution. And he said all this broadcasting, etc., is part of the third revolution. The fourth revolution is driven by AI, and so on. Now, I'd like to spend some time clarifying to people, because lots of people don't fully appreciate the transformational effect of AI in education, or for that matter, AI in any other thing, but more so in education. You see, we've been having computers for a long time, but computers run on what is called an algorithm. So every problem that you have to solve, firstly, it must be solvable. Somebody must know the algorithm for solving the problem. An algorithm means a step-by-step approach to solve the problem. You need a computer programmer to write a computer program for that algorithm. And you need a computer on which you can run that algorithm. And this is the model that we have. But what has happened is, in the recent past, something called artificial intelligence, or rather learning algorithms, have come. And learning algorithms are different from traditional algorithms in that a traditional algorithm, no matter how many times you do, does exactly the same thing again and again. But a learning algorithm learns from experience. This is one of the most interesting and beautiful things. And in fact, I will share with you a formal definition so that to demystify and clarify, sometimes the original expression is most clarifying. So there's a book by Thomas Mitchell on machine learning, very famous book. And when I say what I'm saying, anybody who knows will know this is a quotation from Thomas Mitchell. So why should I not acknowledge it? So Thomas Mitchell says, a learning algorithm for a given task T with performance measure P is such that the performance measure P improves with experience E. Now, this simple line makes all the difference. Garry Kasparov, when he lost to IBM Blue in the chess game, was totally surprised because the previous year he had won against the computer. Next year, he found that the computer has defeated him. And he could not believe it. For a long time, he believed that actually they have found a human chess player who's better than him. They have given him his move, they're showing as the computer's move. The reason is that the computer is capable of learning, and by continuous learning becomes better than this. This happened for the Go player. This happens for so many things. This happens for medical diagnostic. This happens for radiology. This happens for so many decision making, including the application that you use, speech to text conversion, translation, everything. Software, which a couple of years ago made lots of mistakes, is becoming better and better and better. And this is very, very important to understand. And why this is so useful is, and I will go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 4. If you read the Goal 4, you know all that. It is a massive undertaking. People have calculated that you need 70 million teachers in order to be able to achieve that. Where will you get those 70 million teachers? How will you identify them? How will you train them? And how will you then place them where they need to be placed? Because teachers also don't want to go to those places where actually most learners are there who want to learn. In fact, even in India data, the official data says, and I'm not up to date, it says about 1 lakh schools with a single teacher. So you are just not going to have enough teachers to be able to fulfill the needs as per traditional model. This is where this thing becomes very important and your role becomes very important. I want to refer to another story. In the US, when they achieved independence and had a constitution, etc., one of the important things in the US constitution was that they will have a census every 10 years. And the purpose of the census was that they can create the corresponding representation in the House of Representatives and so on. With time, they went beyond headcount to certain attributes of the population also. What is the age, what is male, female, this, that, whatever, and so on and so forth. By 1880, what happened was that the country had expanded, population had expanded, they wanted more and more data. And then when they wanted to put together the data in form that is usable, they found it was already 1888 before they could do anything. It is at that time that the concept of a punch card came, data processing came, tabulating company came, which later became IBM, and the whole computer industry, data processing, and everything that you see today about data science, this, that, started coming. The same thing is going to happen when we try to put together and try to achieve SDG goal 4. It was done in 2015. We are already in 2022 and a half, and we are nowhere near achieving these goals. Another important principle in education has been Bloom's 2 sigma problem. So Benjamin Bloom in 1984 had a paper where he said the best thing is done on a one-to-one basis, and you can do that, but can you do this for mass education? And in that paper, he talked about 2 steps which are very important. One was mastery learning, and the other was monitoring the whole thing. Now, this is what, again, is going to be achieved by technology. You can achieve that mastery learning. The other interesting part is that, as I said, in recent times, after a lot of hype of EdTech, you see the latest news of EdTech is showing that EdTech companies are now, in a sense, falling apart, melt down, whatever you want to call. And the reason is that they have not paid attention to the pedagogical models. And they basically started taking that technology allows you to do broadcast at low cost or very low cost. But education is not broadcasting. Education has broadcasting as an initial step. But after broadcasting, the whole construction of learning happens. And that is not happening with these usual EdTech models that people are progressing with. So anyway, you must have heard these things called API is in computer programming, it is called application programming interface. In the pharmaceutical industry, it is called active pharmaceutical ingredient. But what I'm saying is in our field, it is going to be called AI-powered pedagogical innovation. Now, this is the other very important aspect. The thing that I want to share, because now it's time to close also, the whole transition to this kind of an education to achieve goal 4 of SDG and so on and so forth will also require an understanding of the science of learning. We are so far continuing to do learning or teaching or whatever on principles which are based on anecdotal experience and so on. But as things progress, you see that things move from a work of art, a work of science, industry, practice, whatever. And you'll be surprised, and I want to actually encourage you to read that if you can ever do that. There is a very famous book by Thomas Lewis called The Youngest Science. And he's referring to medicine as the youngest science. Today you might say data science is the youngest science or whatever. We are also now at a stage where learning is to be seen as a science. And the science of learning has to be implemented in the technology that we are talking about. And where is the science of learning being developed? It is an offshoot of neuroscience. I mentioned to you learning algorithm. The brain is a learning algorithm. In fact, there's a very nice book by Norman Deutsch called The Brain That Changes Itself. The brain is a very interesting thing that whereas your traditional computer hardware is fixed, software, etc., the learning algorithm changes, but the brain is a hardware which changes depending upon what experiences we put to the brain. And the future of education is going to be based on this kind of a brain science and what we have learned from brain science and how we are going to be able to implement that and do that. And EdTech will be about applying the science of learning to the technology of whatever and creating those solutions. So these set together is what I call Education 5.0 or the 5th education revolution and so on. I think this is basically a set of key ideas. I told them as a set of stories. I'm happy to take a few questions to elaborate and expand on any of these. And then of course you can keep following this. If you follow this through on various, you could pick any of these words, go to YouTube, go to Google, go to Wikipedia and articles, and you will get it. If everything fails, you can send me a mail or follow me on social media, and I will be happy to give you more information. So thank you, and I hope you find this useful.
Would anyone want to unmute and ask questions to sir? I
Or
would
you-
like to.
Yeah.
No, sir. I just wanted to agree that ignorance is bliss. Now we really have to look at that thing very differently now.
Yes.
It's dangerous if we say that.
Yeah. So you can look into the chatbot. If people have put some comments on the chatbot, you can read out from that also.
Yes, sir. There are many compliments to you, sir.
No,
They
forget
have-
those. Look for questions. Look
No,
for
sir.
questions and points of difference, but however, and so on and so forth.
No, I've been doing that, sir, but it isn't there. I mean, like till now, yeah, yes, sir. There's just one question which has come up by Surbhi Sharma, and she asks, "Is it possible that AI can improve more than human intelligence?"
Yeah. So in fact, see, I think a very important thing that must be made clarified is that in this field, we talk about narrow intelligence and general intelligence. So normally when people AI do, I mean, you are all familiar with Harvard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence and so on. So what AI can do, you remember my definition? A learning algorithm for a given task T. So on task T, the AI will become better than humans. But humans can do a lot of different tasks. So they can do mathematics, they can do music, they can do singing, they can do dancing, they can do argumentation, they can mislead people. So these are various examples of intelligence. Now for each of them, you can create a program which betters the best human being, and that like the chess player and so on. But that chess player software will not be able to beat Sachin Tendulkar in playing cricket. So you will need to create another one for the best cricket player, and then another one for the best basketball player, and so on. So fact of the matter is, task by task, AI will be able to supersede humans in every single task. But collectively, ability of humans to do so many things almost simultaneously switching at instant is so far not done by AI.
So there is a request for a couple of more stories on the use and implications of metaverse on education.
Yeah. So see, one of the most important thing about metaverse in education is this question of access. See, you don't realize that if you just create a simple calculation, how much of the educational infrastructure is not used because of various restrictions. We use it only for 6 to 8 hours in a day, only 200 days in a year, and so on and so forth. Now, how can you have such a colossal waste of resources, precious, valuable resources in a poor country like this? The metaverse is an always on, always present thing where you can go anytime, use anytime, and so on and so forth. So the efficiencies that you will get in terms of whatever your goal of transactions are going to be enormous. A lot more. It's like imagine that you can talk to your teacher anytime you feel like. Yeah.
So what about created broadcast in education? Is it possible for remote areas?
Of course. See, the point is very often people ask me, and my simple answer is, you identify who is interested in the education of those people. See, whoever is interested in the education of those people will be able to create the infrastructure. Companies are ready to provide. I mean, there is absolutely no question that Reliance will not make it or Airtel will not provide it. Also, you need somebody who says, I have 1,000 people, please do something for these. And everywhere where you do that, you know that now cellular network is available in the metro. When you're going inside a tunnel, it is available, etc., etc. There was a time when in the metro, you could not use the cellular network. So the point is, there must be somebody who's interested. My problem is that nobody is interested in the education of the people. So the moment somebody says, I am interested in the education of the people and I'm willing to put my money there, solutions exist to this. There is no part of the thing where it cannot be done if there is somebody who is willing to stick his or her neck out and say, I want this. But what the real tragedy is that people don't understand the value of education. And I will tell you the answer. The value of a good education is perceived over a long period of time. I say this very often. If you think I am well educated, my nursery school teacher has a role in it. My class 5 teacher has a role in it. My high school teacher has a role in it. My BSc teacher has a role in it. My MSc teacher has a role in it. Have these people been ever recognized? Have these people been ever rewarded? We will have somebody on 5th September, some teacher will get award. But all the people who made, and not me, all people like me, see, you know, there was famous phrase by Hillary Clinton, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes so many people, but they are not recognized at all. In fact, they may be in huge suffering conditions, not getting salaries, not getting this, etc., going from office to office. That is why education is not receiving the attention. People understand the commercial market. In this quarter, how much revenue you made. So you see the benefit, you have given a promotion, a bonus, etc. But you made 10 bright people who for the next 50 years contributed to your nation building. Who is the person who is recognizing this? Even acknowledging by lip service that you people are creating great things. I have been part of the IIT system. IITians get great knowledge, but the teachers who train these people in high school to be able to get into IIT, who has ever recognized them? You say, IIT, this has become what? Google chief, IBM chief, this chief, that chief. But who taught that person in school to be ready for IIT and thereafter? Has to be a very good physics teacher, has to be a very good maths teacher, has to be a very good science teacher, has to be a very good motivator. Has anybody ever said? Who were these school teachers who created these people who did so well? No, IIA gets a recognition, IIM gets a recognition, all these people get this thing, but those are, so we have to, as they say, put your money where your mouth is. If education is important, you show that education is important. You cannot ill-treat education and then say education is very important, education should be this thing. So that is what I'm saying.
So how would you foresee assessment now in 5.0? How would you foresee assessment?
No, forget me. Anthony Selden in his book has written that this annual assessment, etc., is over, it is finished. CBSE is dead. You are not recognizing that it is dead. That is because very often, you know, there is something called necrophilia. When we love somebody, we are not willing to acknowledge it is dead. But the fact of the matter is CBSE is dead. And a lot of people are recognizing that because they say we will not go by those results. We will have a separate exam. We will have a CUET. We will have this, that, whatever. So the fact of the matter is that exam is completely meaningless and is absurd. It is only going on by inertia. And as you have rightly said, what will happen is, and already it exists, AI has assessment for whatever you want. So you need to say, what do I want? Once you say, what do I want, AI will detect that. And you know, this is happening every day. I mean, Amazon is using it, Netflix is using it, everybody, they know who you are and they give you content like what you get. So there is no debate, there is no debate. It is simply that people don't change fast enough. And that's why I said ignorance is no excuse. I have now that you provoked me, I have a slide which I show. It's a slide which says, it has a name of the town, Alpine, Texas, founded in 1622. Population 42,000, height above sea level 6299, zip code such and such. And then it adds a total and it creates a number. I said, this is what CBSE is doing. It's like physics, chemistry, math, English, Hindi, total, something. What does it mean? A completely different thing. How do you add marks of physics to marks of Hindi? How do you add marks of chemistry to marks of Hindi? These are completely different skills. It is like saying, I will add your height, your weight, your etc., and create a number. It's a meaningless number. It is a number, all right, just because you could add or your computer could add, but what does it tell you about a person? See, if you compare heights, it tells you whether you're taller or shorter. But when you add height and weight and your waist and your something else, what does it tell you about you? But this is what CBSE does. Not only CBSE, IIT also does the same thing. IIT entrance exam, they will add your physics, chemistry, maths marks, and then tell you whether you can get electrical or mechanical or textile or whatever. Now, how can you be more stupid than this? How can you be more stupid than this when you say that I will add your physics, chemistry, maths marks to tell you whether you will be electrical engineer or mechanical engineer or computer engineer? See, School of Planning and Architecture gives you a question paper on design to see your aptitude for design. NID gives you a paper on design to see your aptitude on design. But IIT gives you a paper on physics, chemistry, maths, adds up the total and tells you what kind of engineer you will become. I mean, you might as well look at the horoscope and see Mercury kahan placed hai aur wo kahan placed hai and give it.
You have me worried, sir. I'm sure all majority teachers here are thinking, what have we been doing?
No, but it is better to realize that.
We're
And
following
you're harming your children. I mean, see the pressure that you put on people. But tell me, can anybody tell me how the IIT entrance test is better than a good analysis of the horoscope? You can ask that same, whatever is that national agency for this thing. Let them write a program for comparing the horoscope and from the horoscope saying whether he will be a good student for IIT or not.
So, like, there's one more question from a teacher here that what key skills then should a teacher be equipped with today?
Very good. Teacher should be equipped. First key skill is to generate curiosity and challenge everything. A student should want to ask a question on everything that is told to him. And I'm not saying this. Elon Musk says this. Elon Musk is the richest guy, most successful guy. Yes. I don't have money. But Elon Musk says this, begin from first principles, ask questions. See, Elon Musk could do as an individual what NASA could not do about space. He could create rockets which will go back. He asked the question, why can't a rocket come back to where it started from? Aeroplane can come back. Why doesn't a rocket come back? Answer this question. Why is the battery so expensive? You said electric cars are very expensive because batteries have to be very expensive. So why is the battery so expensive? What is there in the battery which is so, it has no gold, it has no platinum, it has only lead and this thing, rubber and acid. Why is it so expensive? So this is exactly what teachers should do. They should encourage people to ask, even if you don't know the answer. Asking a good question is more important than trying to do the right answer. And I will give you a story of no less than a person who's a Nobel Prize winner in physics, Rabi. So Rabi got the Nobel Prize in physics for nuclear spin. And if you're unfortunate enough to have to deal with a hospital with an MRI, then magnetic resonance imaging is something which has come out of the work of Rabi. So when Rabi got the Nobel Prize, as happens, people went to him, so what made you take science? What inspired you to take science? And so on. And he did not take National Science Day or Atal Tinkering Lab or any such thing. He said, my mother inspired me to become a scientist. So this is your mother a scientist? He said, no, my mother is a homemaker. He said, then how did your mother get you to become a scientist? Every day when I came back from school, all other mothers would ask, what did you learn in school today? And my mother asked, did you ask a good question today?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I came back.
Yeah, so this is the point. Asking questions, answers can wait. Because if it is an unanswered question, you will keep on trying to find the answer, learn more, see whatever is needed to answer the question. But if your questions are not there, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but everything you say, Rabdi Maya. So then there is nothing to worry, right? It is in the Rab's hand to do everything. She said, Rabdi Maya to hai, but Rab ke dimag mein kya hai? This is what I'm trying to understand. And this is what Einstein said. Einstein didn't want to get into any quarrel with God. So he said, I'm just trying to find out what is going on in the mind of God. What equation is God using to run the world?
So Amarendra sir has a question. He says that LMS, CMS with AI support can have better learning support?
Obviously, no, absolutely no doubt. See, I will explain this very clearly. By now you must have thought and felt that I'm a good teacher, or I must have been a good teacher. So why am I a good teacher? I'm a good teacher because I studied in nice places. As I said, I'm acknowledging everybody who has played a part in my life. I taught in good institutions, IIT, abroad, etc., etc. And I taught for about 40, 50 years. How many students did I teach? A few thousand students. But that AI has the distilled knowledge of 10,000 teachers like me, who are better than me, who have not taught in IIT, they've taught in Caltech, they've taught in MIT, they've taught in Berkeley, everything, all that information the AI has. So there is no way I can compete with AI in being better in that sense. And also I might forget many things. So I might be what I wouldn't remember 1980, some student in IIT asked me something and what did I say? But that computer has it. It says Caltech mein jab Feynman pad raha tha, what question he asked, and his Professor Wheeler, what answer he gave and what he meant. All that the computer never forgets. So there is absolutely no doubt that whenever it comes to processing information which already exists, the computer will be better. What the computer can't do is creativity. It can't imagine something for which there is no data already. Humans have a capacity of imagining things. And this is why Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. So teacher's role is to encourage curiosity, to encourage imagination, to do all these kind of things and create a spirit of interest. You see, half the problem is that teacher and students are both bored with the subject. So I often say that CBSE is completely bored school education.
Okay.
So if you are excited, it will continue.
Okay. So there are many questions and things coming up, but I guess we'll have to continue with the program. So I really thank you, sir. And I'm sure there are many here who cannot do it publicly, but many I'm sure will be joining me to thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for this very illuminating.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We now move on to, I'll just, we heard her yesterday. She was clear and focused, suave, elegant, and sagacious. Madam Honorable Vice-Chancellor Madam's observations about NEP reveal her strong desire to be an enabler for her students. On behalf of the organizers, I request our Honorable Vice-Chancellor Madam, Professor Ujwala Chakradeo, the chairperson of this session, to deliver the presidential address. Over to you, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much. After such a wonderful session, to sum up the things has become slightly difficult for me as well. However, I have been listening intently to Mr. Pant, and so many questions did come to my mind. I thought I would take the privilege of asking those questions when I am talking to you all with him. First, before I begin this, I would like to say that I would like to rather congratulate the Department of Education Technology for arranging such a wonderful, meaningful 2 days sessions and program which is precisely so relevant in this time. We all are looking at national education policy as a game changer. And we are thinking that the things will now change. Education is a tool to bring about a change in society through individuals. So individuals change because they learn something. And what is this learning is something which was so elaborately and wonderfully explained by Mr. Pant in today's session. It's a science. It's a science of learning. That's epistemology of learning. I try to remember the spellings also at times to understand what does this word really mean the epistemology of learning. Once you have learned something, you cannot go back. There is a paradigm shift within you, and you are a bit by bit changed person. And this learning, with the help of artificial intelligence and understanding the methodology and taking help of artificial intelligence, this was something which I realized and learned for the first time in today's session from Mr. Pant. Since yesterday, I have been learning. Yesterday, I did say that in the first session, inaugural session, to hear about what national education policy is from the mouth of a person who has been responsible for its making. And I did say yesterday that every line means so many things. When I started reading Gita, actually every time you read Gita, there is a new version which evolves within you. And same thing happens with national education policy is what my thoughts are about it. And I'm learning from national education policy draft, and I'm changing bit by bit every moment, every time I indulge and get myself involved with national education policy. This 2 days intervention with national education policy is a feast for people who really want to do something with national education policy. And the climax, the icing on the cake is what Mr. Pant talked about it today. It was a new knowledge for me, new piece of information for me. Being an architect, I always looked at artificial intelligence connected with the buildings. And I thought what I've learned rather about, learned means I know I have an information about what artificial intelligence does to the to buildings. This is the first time using artificial intelligence to change the pattern of learning of an individual is a piece of information and piece of learning for me as well. Today I've learned it. So it's a great thing, and I would like to acknowledge it and thank Mr. Pant for giving me this understanding. Many things I learned during his talk. I was intensely listening to you, sir. You started your speeches. I will follow you now. I'm very weak at following the social media, but now I will try myself to follow you, to understand many more things about artificial intelligence, and particularly to understand its role in education. You talked about education, you talked about teachers, and you talked about artificial intelligence and its role there. The entire paradigm, entire systems, or entire viewpoint of education needs to be absolutely changed now, is what we have been talking about. You started your session with many anecdotes and many stories. One I would like to mention over here, and I did think, remembered that when you were talking. This is something about Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Paramhansa. The moment Ramakrishna Vivekananda started disbelieving him in his initial days, at that time, Ramakrishna Paramhansa touched him in such a way that the entire world revolved around him. And he was no more a Narayan. He changed. He was a changed person. He became Vivekananda, though the name came later, much later. But this change, which has transformed Vivekananda by a mere touch of a guru, how can this be related to artificial intelligence? Or is it so that the physics has yet to reach to that level of innovation, or I would say that level of inventions where the changes within a mankind which have been happening and have not yet been revealed are being measured through this. I'm not questioning what you said, sir. I'm trying to understand the ultimate level through which this change within an individual can happen through gurus, through teacher. And teacher is a co-learner, is what you have been telling. In CBSE, the teachers and the students, when they're bored of the stale information and the knowledge, and then they start pretending that I am teaching and you are learning, and that's the moment where we are insulting the education and the learning. Learning is something which is live. Learning is something which is wonderful. Learning is something which is, when it happens to you, the entire body and mind keeps changing. We have been always saying that the current education system where we, myself and you and probably all of us have gone through and learned was devoid of emotions is what I thought of. And national education policy through its teachers is trying to put those emotions within the entire system. And these emotions can be put by a teacher because the freedom of preparing her or his own curriculum and the pedagogical systems is being given to the teacher. We talk about teachers doing wonders in this system, but are teachers aware of their capacities is what we ask the question. And that's what you have been saying. One of the ways of equipping themselves to be good teacher and to be a co-learner is to be aware of what artificial intelligence can be used as a pedagogical system, is what you mentioned, and something I feel should be emulated by every teacher and every person who is in the field of education, so that the facilities and the ecosystem can be prepared by the people who are at the helm of the affairs, like vice-chancellors or the people who are the managers of the educations, so that the teacher is entitled or teacher feels like getting involved in learning processes. Pedagogy is nothing but something where the teacher is involved and derives pleasure out of it. So when we derive a pleasure, teacher herself has to be happy about what she is sharing and she is trying to give to the students. Basically, I take back my words because it's nothing to give or take. But long ago, I had one of the definitions which has touched my heart of learning is "Ya hrudayacha, tya hrudayi dyacha." In Marathi, when we talk about it, there's something in my heart which I want to share with my students, and I have been transformed because of that particular point. And now I'm trying to bring about that transformation in my teachers, and together we are doing something. So idealism is the method of teaching and learning which prevailed in India for a long time, now is being challenged, and we talked about naturalism, and you go beyond that, and I don't know what we call it as with this fifth revolution to be as. So we always talked about the ideal world being in the education sector and the real world following it, or probably the situation which had come now in our society was that there was a complete separation of what idealism is, what ideal world is, and what the real world, what happens in the real world. And that, according to me, is the source of chaos in the entire society. So the chaos which we see, not only in India, but all over the world, is because we feel and believe in something which is very deeply, we understand it as a human being, and we believe in it. Because at home, my mother and my parents talk about something, but when I go a step out of my cozy comfort of emotional comfort, I see that I realize that the world outside believes in something else than what I believe deep inside. And I started believing and following that world, and the education gets separated from the world, from the society. So education ke mandir, icons, they are there, and there is a society. And we looked at national education policy as a tool to bridge this gap. And today, a tool within that has been given by you, sir, that through artificial intelligence, bridging this gap would be much easier in one direction. So this is one part which can be used as a tool and can be made wider and can be made applicable to last person to whom we have to reach and educate or give information as. So first step of learning is to have a piece of information in a systematic manner, and that would be possible through this intervention. There are many things we learned. The books and the references you were quoting, I was noting down, and I will try to look at those books and references you were mentioning about. And of course, there were several questions which I have already mentioned few, but would be in your contact. More the teachers here who have to gear up, teachers here, those who are attending this conference. It's not the teachers training program. Teachers can never be trained. Teachers can only be motivated. And today's your lecture and especially all the lectures and the bit by bit information of national education policy has that capacity to motivate the teachers to become the co-learners with students, because when every lecture is being delivered and every activity being carried out by a teacher with the students, the learning has already happened within you. That the cells changed, the smiles on your face change, and your eyes start talking in a different way, and your personality of a learned person and a personality of a person who is not yet to reach to that level is different. Whatever you are wearing is something which is not very important, you soon realize. And I've been telling my young students always that if you want to groom your personality, you should have a thought within you. And this thought gets reflected through questions. So you are then arriving at the purpose of your life. Otherwise, you're born, you grow, somebody tells you to become a teacher, so you become a teacher, you teach, and then you read lots of books, and you do so many things intently also. And one day you die. Why did you do it? What were you here for? Arriving at the answer to the question, why am I here on this earth, comes with these questions, and that becomes the ultimate question. Thank you so much for telling so many things in so many simple words. And thank you to the organizers for making this session, not only this session, but this entire event so meaningful, so wonderful, and looking at now national education policy, through national education policy, through the speakers, through our activities, through our teaching learning processes differently, first within ourselves, and then with everybody who comes in our contact. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. You have defined the roles of the teachers today, who have to, again, I think, redefine themselves with AI as a teaching learning tool, and also the power of questions, bringing in that also. Thank you, madam. And now for the final section. Alice Walker once said that expressing gratitude, humility, and understanding is very important. These two words, thank you, can indeed express a lot. So over now to Dr. Jayashree, who wishes to thank each and every person who has contributed in making this webinar a very grand success. Over to you, Dr. Jayashree.
Yes, thank you. Saying thank you is very easy, but when it comes to many people, it's not that easy. So many who make the entire event successful. Undoubtedly, we begin thank you note with respect to Dr. K. Kasturirangan sir for two reasons: for making NEP 2020 for us, and for enlightening us of this holy book of educators. We thank on behalf of the Department of Educational Technology to bless us at the beginning of this golden jubilee year. On behalf of SNDT Women's University, which is instrumental in all possible steps towards NEP implementation under able leadership of Honorable Madam Vice-Chancellor. And on behalf of CIT and CRT, who are enormously contributing in NEP implementation. And we thank sir on behalf of all participants from every corner of the nation. Thank you very much, sir. We take this opportunity to thank Honorable Madam Vice-Chancellor for being with us right from the stage of inviting Dr. Kasturi Rangan sir and encouraging us at every step of this conference. The flexibility and support offered by her in all our academic activities is a major motivational force and keeps us moving. Listening to Professor M.M. Pant is always an experience in itself. Department is more fortunate to have him thrice with us. And coincidentally, the first one was in collaboration with CIT and CRT in March 2009. Thank you, sir. Not only educators, but all those who are passionate about educational revolutions, technology disruptions, know and follow Professor Pant, and your network is widening and widening. We thank our conference advisor and department's lifetime mentor, Professor Vasudha Kamath, who has kindly spared time for this event. We thank her for being so deeply involved and instrumental in making of this policy. She was here for us and also delivered keynote in spite of her yesterday's challenging schedule. Thank you, madam. When words fail to thank madam, it is easier to say it is your own department. Do we really need to thank you because you have nurtured and brought it to the stage of this 50 glorious years. As soon as I uttered about the idea of this conference, Professor Behra said yes within a fraction of a second, and I was relieved. He has been positive always whenever and whatever we discuss together about this conference. I thank the entire CIT team, mainly Dr. Indu Kumar and Dr. Angel, Dr. Kaushik for being so positive, so supportive. Technical team led by Ms. Anupama Takral is streaming this session simultaneously on NCRT channels, their Facebook, and the videos will be again broadcast on television, education television channel. Thank you, the entire team led by Professor Behra. The success of the conference depends on two things, whether you agree or not. One, excellent and enriching keynotes, and second, delicious lunch. We achieved enormous success in the first, and the second one was achieved indirectly because we have given you adequate lunch time. So we are fortunate to have stalwarts and policymakers to simplify underlying principles of NEP 2020 and also guiding us towards implementation of various aspects. We are passionate and so much down-to-earth experts like Professor Sandeep Sancheti, Mr. Viplav Bakshi are a precious treasure of the department. Professor Sancheti, whom we refer to as 8 times VC, as mentioned in the morning, spared early morning time from Poland for us to make us understand integrities of ABC. Mr. Viplav Bakshi offered his valuable inputs at even every stage of planning the conference. And as a senior vice president of Nimbus, Mr. Bakshi is helping our university now to integrate Nimbus in our Moodle LMS. So I thank him for all his keynotes and workshop inputs and now the future help. It is not only about understanding the principles and following required procedures, but also demands some skills on the part of teachers. The way there was a question to Professor Pant now, what skills do we need? And when it comes to EdTech implementation, yes, may it be software tools for collaboration or e-content, OER development, maybe mainstreaming OER, may it be technology supports like 360-degree assistive technology, or may it be pedagogy itself, or PBL, cooperative learning strategies as a part of pedagogy. All our expert friends working, practicing, rather leaving these initiatives in their life, agreed and helped us as resource persons in our workshops. We could touch upon all 12 varied areas of EdTech implementation only because of these resource persons like Professor Madhulika Kaushik, Dr. Ramesh Sharma, Professor Indu Kumar, Professor Vikas Shinde, Dr. Yashpal Sharma, Dr. Angel, Ms. Sushumna Rao, Mr. Biju K, entire St. Xavier's Resource Center for the Visually Challenged team, Mr. Sushil Pandit, Keshavan, Devyani, and Dr. Sam, who led them, guided them. I thank all resource persons from the bottom of our heart. We consider Dr. Chitra Vadke, Ms. Devyani, and Mr. Nikhil as a lifetime asset to the department, wherever they are and wherever they will be. Thank you all, dear colleagues, Ms. Rachni, Dr. Tamsa, all those who coordinated small workshops as host. with SNDT University. Mr. Dhananjay Mahakar, expert visualization artist, who started his career of graphic designer 2 decades ago in the Department of Educational Technology. And today he has given us the most precious gift of logo. It was the most perfect decision of Professor Kamath and I that yes, Dhananjay will design our logo. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhananjay. We couldn't have got better or more perfect logo than this. True Scholar Company is an event manager with us who will be using their blockchain technology, and they will be certifying all our successful participants of this workshop. They are still with us for this valedictory. This is a sponsorship initiative from their side, so we warmly acknowledge their contribution. 12 workshops in a 2-day conference with 6 parallel workshops at a time, that too in online mode, because we have already experimented this parallel workshops many a times in conferences which were face to face. But for online, it was a dream, and a dream came true only because of very strong and dedicated team of department, particularly teaching learning center team. We are able to experiment in such modalities since pandemic has begun only because of this team led by project lead Ms. Devyani Vijay. I request all colleagues to start their camera. Dr. Madhavi Dharankar is part of department with me. So we both thank this team of instructional designer, Laiba Qureshi, multimedia expert Pragati Golatkar, studio and AV team in charge Nikhil Nagarkar, LMS manager Nilesh Kasle, technical assistant Shehzad Khan, office assistants Dipti Kasrum and Ronali Chauhan, office staff Musha Siddesh and Madhvi. Thank you, PhD scholar Dipti Jadhav, and our students such as Arwa, Wazira and batchmates. I request all, so I can we see your TLC team on camera? Because,
You must thank Professor Stephen.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, again a person who is legendary and pioneer MOOC in MOOCs and CMOOCs, Professor Stephen Dovins. He sent us his precious 16-minute film. He recorded it for us on CMOOC. Interactivity in MOOC was done for which he has sent, and this will be now on our department's website for all other participants who were not part of this that particular workshop. We express our deep thanks, and thank you, madam, for reminding. The attempt started with so many 415 participants. Many dropped out, but before that, our team had already worked day and night to segregate and put them in different workshops as per their first preference. So it was very, very tedious work. And I appreciate and thank you all interested participants who are with us till now since yesterday, and they are enjoying, appreciating, asking questions in various academic sessions. So thank you very much. And we are soon announcing Moodle workshop, Moodle LMS workshop of 1 week with late evening sessions. And we again request our participants to spread the message to the unreached, those who are not yet in our network. Please spread this message. If you have really liked this conference, please spread message so that they will be benefited in Moodle workshop. This will be our 3rd Moodle workshop, LMS workshop. So let others join us in that. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So,
thank you and congratulations to Dr. Shinde and her team. Big thank you.
Congratulations.
So with Madam Chairperson's permission, may I announce that the conference is towards the end?
Yes, surely. And even my congratulations to all of you for a wonderful teamwork.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar.
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 Yes,